For about 2,000 years, the world has celebrated the birth of Jesus on December 25th. Nativity scenes, carols, and a global holiday all revolve around this one winter day. It's a date etched into our culture. But what if the story we know is just one version? What if the Bible and history contain clues that point to a completely different season? In the next few minutes, we're going to explore some fascinating clues, from a priest's ancient duties to shepherds under a starry sky, that have led some to a startling conclusion. Jesus might not have been a winter baby at all. Stick with me as we investigate a theory that suggests Jesus' true birthday might actually be in the fall. So, how did we land on December 25th anyway? If you look at the Gospels of Matthew and Luke, which tell the nativity story, they don't give a date or even a time of year. For the first few centuries, it seems most early Christians didn't have a big celebration for his birth. They were much more focused on his death and resurrection. The first mentions of a specific birth date pop up much later. In the 3rd century, writers were suggesting dates all over the calendar, in March, April, and May. It wasn't until a Roman almanac from around 336 AD that we see the first clear record of December 25th as the Nativity. Now, one popular theory is that this date was chosen to line up with pagan festivals celebrating the winter solstice, the rebirth of the sun, and to give that idea a new Christian meaning. However, other scholars argue it came from internal Christian calculations, like the idea that Jesus was conceived on the same date he died, which would have been near the spring equinox, placing his birth 9 months later in December. The point is, there was no early agreement, and the Bible itself offers some details that have made people question a winter birth for a long time. You know the image. And in the same region, there were shepherds out in the field, keeping watch over their flock by night. For centuries, we've pictured a cold, maybe even snowy night. But does that hold up? The Judean winter is cold and rainy, with nighttime temperatures often dropping into the low to mid-40s Fahrenheit. Because of this, many have argued that shepherds would have likely sheltered their flocks at night rather than keeping them in open fields. To them, the presence of shepherds sleeping outdoors strongly suggests a milder time of year, like the spring or early fall. However, this clue isn't a slam dunk. Modern scholars point out that those temperatures aren't that different from places where shepherds do keep flocks outside today, so it's certainly possible they were out in December. It's an interesting detail, but it's definitely debated. The second clue also comes from Luke's Gospel, which explains why Joseph and Mary were traveling in the first place. In those days, a decree went out from Caesar Augustus that all the world should be registered. This census is what sent them to Bethlehem. The argument here is one of simple logistics. The whole point of a census was to count people for taxation. To get everyone to cooperate, wouldn't it make sense to schedule it at the most practical time of year? Some argue that holding a census in winter with its difficult weather and roads would have been a logistical nightmare. A better time, they suggest, would be after the fall harvest, when the weather was mild and travel was easier. Then again, Roman bureaucracy wasn't exactly known for prioritizing the convenience of its citizens. There's no solid proof that censuses were only held in good weather, so this clue, like the shepherds, is more of a speculative point than hard evidence. Now, our most detailed clue is also the most complex. It's found in the story of John the Baptist's father, a priest named Zechariah. Luke tells us Zechariah belonged to the priestly division of Abijah. This isn't just a random detail. Back in King David's time, priests were split into 24 divisions, or courses, which took turns serving in the temple for 1 week, twice a year. Here's where it gets tricky. Some scholars, by trying to reconstruct this ancient schedule, have proposed that the division of Abijah served its turn around the end of June that particular year. This specific calculation is a key part of the September birth theory. The angel Gabriel appeared to Zechariah during this service and told him his wife Elizabeth would have a son, John the Baptist. Zechariah went home, and Elizabeth conceived. However, we have to be honest here. This is a highly debated reconstruction. Other calculations place Zechariah's service at totally different times of the year, which would completely change the timeline that follows. So, we simply can't be certain about the timing. But if we follow this one theory that starts in June, the timeline unfolds like this. John the Baptist is conceived in late June or early July. Then, the Bible says the angel Gabriel visited Mary in the 6th month of Elizabeth's pregnancy. The 6th month from late June, early July, would be late December or early January. If you add 9 months for a normal pregnancy from that point, you land on a birth date for Jesus in late September. This intricate timeline, all starting with one interpretation of a priest's schedule, is how we get from a December tradition to a September theory. This alternate timeline, shifting the nativity from December to September, really makes you think, doesn't it? If you're finding this historical detective work as interesting as I do, go ahead and hit the like button and subscribe. And maybe share this video with someone who might be surprised to learn the story behind the holiday. The historical clues we've looked at are all part of a theory pointing to a fall birth, but there's another layer to this, a deeply symbolic one. A birth in late September would place Jesus' arrival right around the time of a major Jewish festival, the Feast of Tabernacles, or Sukkot. The Feast of Tabernacles is a joyous, week-long celebration of the harvest and of God's faithfulness to the Israelites when they lived in temporary shelters or booths in the desert. The whole theme of the festival is God dwelling with his people. Now, think about that famous line in the Gospel of John, "And the Word became flesh and dwelt among us." The Greek word for dwelt here is skanu, which literally means to live in a tent or to pitch a tabernacle. Many see a beautiful parallel here, the idea that Jesus, also called Emmanuel, meaning God with us, might have been born during the very festival celebrating God dwelling with humanity. This isn't historical proof of the date, but it's a stunning layer of theological meaning that feels like a perfect fit. For centuries, December 25th has been the center of the Christmas story. But as we've seen, the exact date of Jesus' birth is unknown, and it wasn't a major focus for the earliest Christians. The clues we have, the shepherds in the fields, the timing of the census, and the priestly course of Zechariah, are ambiguous, and scholars use them to argue for different seasons, whether spring, fall, or winter. But when pieced together in one particular way, they create a compelling theory for a birth in the fall, possibly in September. And when you add the rich symbolic connection to the Feast of Tabernacles, the case feels even more resonant. In the end, the specific date on the calendar is less important than the event itself. But exploring these hidden clues and forgotten histories can give us a fresh perspective. It reminds us that sometimes the greatest truths aren't just found in tradition, but are waiting to be rediscovered by asking new questions.